Ready to rock. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Common Sense, the podcast. I hope you guys are ready for a good one. Got my good friend here with me today. What's up, Mark?
Same old crap, man.
Same old crap.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most laid-back person you will ever see, meet, or experience in your life. If you look at laid back in the dictionary, it's a picture of Mark smiling.
Mark McClurkan.
Yes.
Boom. There you go. Well, we'll have to drag it out of him. We'll get him lively today.
I've never seen him get hyper. I would love to see that.
Oh, Lord. I'm probably the most boring guest you could ever have.
I don't know about that. I disagree with that. And you know what? It's always the people that say like that or say like, I don't have anything to talk about. Or why do you want me to come talk on here? I have nothing to say. That ends up being the crazy shows.
Ends up being the livest guest we've ever damn had.
Yeah. I mean, he's like a historian. He's got his own cigar now, but he don't have nothing to talk about.
And we're going to talk about one of my favorite shits. You already know what we're going to talk about, right?
Oh, Lord.
Yes, we're going to talk about that. Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
I'm scared now. He's got Biz fired up.
Yeah. Because he had me read a book and everything, and I'm like, oh, wow. We'll get to it.
All right. Well, so those that do not know who Mark McClurkan is, give us your 2 minutes, Bill. Tell everybody a little bit about where you're from, what your background is, you know, and we'll get into talking cigars and stuff.
All right. Well, I've done a little of everything, to be honest. Everything from running cattle to analyst and programmer, and now I'm a cigar company.
And where you born and raised Texas?
Born and raised in Texas. We've been here since it was Mexico. So if you've been here a little while, I got family on both sides, fought the revolution, and I just grew up like everybody else. Have my day job, nothing exciting, just a family man with trying to get ahead.
There you go. I can, one of the main reasons I wanted to have you come talk to everybody is, you've put out, and we can go ahead and get into that right now. That's one of the things everybody always wants to know. What are we smoking? What we're drinking? He's drinking a Coke Zero. I'm going to tell on him. Biz and I are drinking a tequila mezcal fusion old fashioned.
Since I'm going running after the episode today, I figure I have some alcohol.
He said he's going to join me today. So,
what do you think?
It's pretty good, man. Like, it's not Ben's best drink. I like them. I've never had somebody mix mezcal and tequila, like go 50-50.
Right.
But it adds some unique flavor to it. So, I dig it.
I'm not going to probably drink another one.
No.
But it's still cool for what it is.
Yeah. It's definitely cool for what it is. It's got good flavor. It's pairing well with the cigar, too. Mm-hmm. So, as far as what we're smoking, well, since Mark's here, and I think you've seen me and Biz both smoke one of these on here before. Mm-hmm. But Mark is the proud new owner of these bad boys, the CATI cigar. So I'm going to let you talk about them and tell them a little bit about what we're smoking. So,
all right. This one's a PR49. That's our first blend that we've released. It's named after my dad, Philip Ray, 1949. And it's pretty much our whole brand centers around the family.
Yeah.
So every blend we do is going to be named after somebody. We've got another blend we're working on called a BB52, which is my mom's. That's going to be Brenda Brown, 1952.
Awesome.
This one has a Jamastran Habano wrapper.
Okay.
It's Jamastran region of Honduras. It's got a Connecticut binder. We've got fillers from Esteli and Jalapa, Nicaragua, and a Honduran broadleaf in it.
Awesome. Now, how did you come up with CATI cigar brand? Like, how did you, because I want you to kind of start us at the beginning, because that's where I think a lot of people are going to find this very interesting, want to know, because you walk into pretty much any cigar lounge, there's always guys, no matter what they do, whether they want it for their business or, if I wanted to do Common Sense, the podcast, most guys are just going to go and make a deal with somebody, buy some cigars, throw a little wrapper on them, but all talk about how they made their own cigar. You've taken this to a whole nother level. And I mean, I remember when I first got back in the Apex and started like hearing you talk about this, and you're like, man, like, sucks looking for a job, tired of not working. And then one day you were just like, I'm going to make me a damn cigar. And I'm like, okay, sure, cool, Mark. And sure as shit, a year later, here you come. Hey, man, why don't you try my new cigar? And I'm like, well, shit, I like this guy more already because he said he was going to do it. And from that point on, he's been steadily in the laboratory figuring out how to make his own cigar. And you did it. I'm super proud to see you get this out, man. And from what I know, it's doing damn good. I mean, you can talk about where you got it out at and whatnot now. I mean, you guys can get CATI cigars here at Industrial when they are in stock. I know that first batch went out real fast. I mean, because everybody up here support them. And it's not just, and I want to be real clear about this too, because I'm not paid to say anything on here or anything. If Mark's cigar sucked, everybody up here would have told him it sucked and would not have held back. Mark put out a legit good cigar that I would say even went past people's expectations for your first time around.
I think so. I think we turned out pretty good on the first run. It really started about 2020. I started looking at what it would take to do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I got real tired of making other people rich.
Mm-hmm.
Work in corporate America and put in all your time, put your retirement up, get ready to go, making everybody else money. And it just doesn't do crap for you. You end up getting laid off or shuffled out the door because you're getting old or whatever. And I finally just decided to do something for myself. And that's really where this started at.
Yeah.
And cigars, it's been a passion of mine for a long time. I've probably been smoking cigars 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's actually been a blast. I didn't know where to start. Nobody does.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. And so I made great contacts here at Industrial. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible. And we finally hooked up with the right people. And right now we're working with FCT in Honduras. Fantastic factory, outstanding management. It's been a truly great experience.
Yeah.
And we've done everything from the get-go from scratch. We're not the guys that go in and slap our label on something. I can't do that. That just kills me.
I couldn't either. I got asked about that early on when everybody was like, cigar podcast, whatnot. Are you going to, put out your own blended whiskey or, I could do a tater bottle with any one of my buddies' clubs. Like I'm not doing that. Like I could give three shits about doing that. And then the same thing with cigars. Like, are you going to do a cigar? You should have cigars. You should sell cigar. No, man. There's so many people that make a good cigar. Like, there's no need for that in my space, and I'm not going to just put a lap on it. I would like to go be a part of that experience sometime and take one of these ICC trips that they do every now and then and go down and, hang out with Luciano or something and, sit there and try to come up with a new blend or, do something cool like that. But that's as far as I want to go down that road.
Well, it's definitely a challenge, and like you can't just slap a label on something if you're going to do it right.
Yeah, no.
And for us, we wanted to do it not just right, but a little differently. So we've actually included customers in our blending process from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
I mean, what we'll typically do is go down and establish 2 or 3 different base blends.
Okay.
We'll bring back some samples, and we'll work with people that are our customers.
Yeah.
Say, hey, what do you like? Which one's your favorite? Which one should we tweak? And then you just kind of narrow it down. You get to that one, and you go back to the factory, and you make more adjustments. Change your leaf ratios, change a filler, change a binder, whatever you have to do with it. But when you involve your customers in it, you come up with something that's not necessarily even your palate. but you get something that people just smoke it and they go, damn, that's good.
Yeah. How did you learn? Or, I mean, I know you said you've been smoking cigars for like 20 years. So, I mean, I'm sure, and it's a passion of yours, so I'm sure your cigar knowledge is pretty immense. But how did you kind of start knowing, do I want to play with the wrapper first or the binder or the fillers? Like, how did you learn and find your way through that process?
When you're first getting started, it's absolutely critical to have a good factory, because they're going to have blenders on staff that know their tobacco. They know what they have enough of to produce production runs. They know what they have enough of for limited runs.
Yeah.
And so you're really working with those guys. And when you get there, you give them your goal. You know, I need a production cigar, so let's look at production tobaccos. And they're going to bring you just a table full of tobacco. It's absolutely ridiculous. By lunch, the first day, you're like, shit, if I have to smoke another leaf, I'm going to pass out. You're hunting sugar to offset the nicotine by lunch.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you work with them, and you smoke every one of these production tobaccos.
Okay.
And you smoke it just that single rolled leaf. And you take notes, lots and lots of notes. What's the flavor of that leaf? You know, what's the strength of that leaf? Is it acidic? Does it dry your palate? And so you start making all these huge notes, and you may end up with a page and a half of notes per leaf.
Okay.
And you'll go through and you'll say, okay, well, I really liked this half dozen leaves. And so you start working with their blender and say, okay, what of these is going to go together and what ratios? And so you just start working together on those sample blends with their blender. And can you do it all yourself? Yes, but it's a little foolish to try because there are so many combinations. I mean, I've got pictures of our first blending session where there are 20 leaves lined out on the table, and we're smoking all 20 of them, taking notes. And so having that input from a good factory is absolutely key, especially when you're like me and you say I have a lot of knowledge on cigars, but when you get to these factories, you realize even after years of this, you don't know shit.
Yeah. But that's like, I think that goes for pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's every new industry.
If you think you know everything, like you're in a whole nother category.
Oh yeah. So that, honestly, to me, that's the best part, is because I can go down there and I can learn from these guys.
Yeah.
And that is an absolute blast for me. Don't get me wrong, I love to come in here and see people smoking my cigars and just sit back where I know that they don't know who I am and hear them talk about it. That's fun.
Yeah.
But to get down there and get your hands dirty, I love it. I need to get back down there soon because it's just so much to learn and so enjoyable while you're there. The people are absolutely wonderful in Central America.
Yeah. How many trips did you have to make to get the first one that you decided was going to be your first one?
Really, all we needed on the first blend was one trip.
Oh, wow.
Because you nail down those leaves in that period.
Yeah.
And once you nail down which leaves you want, they can send you samples that they can produce from those leaves in different ratios.
Tweaks that you
and
want.
You can work remotely to do some of that. And is it ideal? Not necessarily. But you've also got to recognize that what you smoke while you're smoking those samples is not going to be your finished product.
Yeah.
It's just not. For instance, our cigars, once they're rolled, the day we smoke them on the floor tastes very different than after they've rested for 2 months.
Okay.
Those flavors marry. Some get stronger, some get lighter. It balances the cigar more. But even then, our cigars aren't ready. Before we sold our first cigar here at Industrial, which was our first release, our cigars aged 6 months here in the U.S.
Okay.
So we have 8 months of age on a cigar after it's rolled, plus the age of the tobacco.
Have you decided or learned anything from that of like where you want to take that more or less in the next ones? Like, are you gonna start doing more refining of this original, or are you completely happy with it? Or are you going to, and you're just going to start putting out some other ones like the BB? It's I'm assuming maybe completely different.
It's going to be completely different. We're actually looking at partnering with a factory in the DR.
Okay.
So that we can get Dominican tobacco. Mm-hmm. Because we really want some significant variance in our line. Now this one, to me, it's a solid smoke. It's a production smoke. It's good to go. So we're not going to really do a lot of tweaking. We're going to have to tweak it every now and then if crops change or there's an issue with leaves, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, this blend is ready to go. We're good with it. We're not going to tinker with it too much, except making sure that it stays where it needs to be. We do have some other stuff coming out that's not even named yet.
Yeah.
I mean, our second full-size cigar is going to be the BB52.
Uh-huh.
But we do have some minis that we're working on. And I'm hoping to have some samples of those in the next couple of months.
I'll be your guinea pig. I love minis. I'd love to be on your little committee for guinea pig mini cigars.
We can certainly do that. We ordered those with our second run of the PR49, so we should have those samples coming in here within the next month or two. Once they get here, they'll need to rest and acclimate, and we'll have to see how they age.
How'd you decide on the size and the shape of your cigars?
Especially the Canon.
Especially the Canon. I'm leading into that.
My bad. Didn't mean to jump the gun on you, brother.
All right. Well, the two best-selling cigars are Toro and Robusto. Mm-hmm. Especially in Texas. Toro is king. And so what we wanted to make sure we did is present a cigar that would appeal to the most people. When you're a new company, you need the broadest appeal you can get. So we're trying to make solid decisions in what vitolas we produce. But also, when you go in knowing what you're producing, it lets you tweak that blend to the size. So BB52 are going to be probably different sizes than this one, depending on the blend.
Yeah.
Now the Canon, that was just something I wanted. It had several aspects to it that
it goes with the CATI.
It goes with the CATI, come and take it. But and that's fun. The cosmetic piece was a huge part of it. But I have enough physics in my education to be a problem. I know just enough to screw stuff up.
To be really dangerous, I think.
Yeah, to really break something or hurt myself. And so I started thinking about what would this shape, if I build a Canon, do? And we didn't even know if it would work. We had no idea if it would draw properly.
Someone said that you smoked the wrong end of a cigar.
So
that was a story I heard. I don't know if it's true or not.
That is absolutely true. I was sitting around one night trying to think, well, what can I do? Nobody produces this shape. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I started looking and I thought, well, the house stick at ICC is a pyramid.
Yep.
Which is kind of a backwards
Canon.
Yeah. And so I just took cigar glue and glued the seam all the way down it and cut the cap off and lit it. And that night I called Dave and I was like, Dave, have you smoked your house stick backwards?
I would have paid money for you to have recorded this phone conversation.
Yeah, it was kind of why the hell would I smoke that?
I'm sure are you fucking retarded, Mark? I'm betting, knowing the phrase.
Not far off, but he was much more polite. But yeah, it worked, and it made the cigar a completely different cigar. And once we did that, while we're working on our blend, I had the molds made. Which, if you can avoid having molds made, avoid having molds made.
Yeah, so any of you wanting to do this, if you want to step off, like he's referring to, for people that aren't familiar with the molds, there are actual molds that the rollers use when they are making these different shaped cigars you do. And when you create this, go down the rabbit hole, if you want to make your own unique one, you now have to have those molds made for whoever is rolling your cigar. And that's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap. Writing that check will shrivel your pod.
Let alone patenting your...
And it takes forever. I mean, it is not a fast process. You're talking, even if you've got your blends ready, you've got all your tobacco bought, you're ready to go.
I mean, trademarking alone takes forever.
Oh, yeah. It takes months to get the molds made. And then you've got to deal with testing the molds. Because when you get the molds, it may take 2 or 3 months to get a sample. Well, a sample mold is one cigar, just to test concept.
Yeah.
Well, then you got to go back and have all your sets made. And they're all handmade out of wood. I mean, here in the U.S., we can get plastic molds that are machined, and they probably last longer, but they're also super expensive.
Yeah. And that's not traditional, and you seem to be a guy that stays with tradition. I like a nice mix of tradition and innovation.
You have to mix it up. Otherwise, you get in a rut and you're just like everybody else. And that's part of why we wanted to do the Canon.
Yeah.
But what we figured out doing it is, I don't know how familiar you are with computers, but you know what a heat sink is?
I do not.
Okay, well, a heat sink is basically fins of aluminum that you stick onto a processor in a computer.
Okay.
And the heat travels up the fins and gives it more surface area and cools the processor so it doesn't shatter in the computer.
Gotcha.
Well, the shape of the Canon does the exact same thing.
Really?
Because that smoke comes into the back of the cigar and it spreads out and it comes in contact with more tobacco than you have at the front. But because the front is the smaller end, you've also reduced the ember size. And the combination of the two produces a cool smoke. And so it stays cool all the way to the end.
I did notice that, like, you watch people smoking the Canons and they're literally trying not to burn their fingers, but you realize, like, you can literally smoke it all the way to, like, here, pretty much, without even having a poker or anything like that. You can really get after it. And
that's why, is because the ember size stays smaller than the diameter of the cigar because it's tapered all the way back. And the more that smoke comes in contact with tobacco, the cooler it's going to be. Now, can you smoke it fast and get it hot? Of course.
Yeah.
But if you're taking your time and you're just enjoying it, it works out pretty well.
Oh, you got some commenters on here now. They're flooding in.
Uh-oh.
First reaction when you smoked the first CATI cigar. Tell us about that experience. My first reaction was I tried to go into it very open, not really knowing. Like, I didn't sit and have a conversation with Mark about the cigar. Mark just said, "Here, I'd like you to try one of my cigars." And I said, "Sure." And it was actually on a Thursday, and it was when I was up here doing show prep, and I sat down and started smoking it. And everybody knows I am a draw whore, so that's always my first thing. Like, am I gonna have to relight this, 100 times? Do you have to be able to start a Harley to get this thing to keep going? Like, that drives me absolutely insane. So that was the first thing I noticed, was like the draw was amazing on it. That Canon, like, it just kept going, and like you could sit and be having a conversation and working and put it down, and the flavor, for people that have smoked a lot of cigars, you take note of how much a cigar changes from start to finish, because how they blend changes as that gets closer to you, and the amount of heat and everything else, like you were just talking on. But the flavor palette change. Like it might be hitting you really up front and be kind of strong up front when you first light it, and then it just starts mellowing, and then you get some other flavors that start expanding and hitting your palate differently. So that was impressive with yours, and it gave me similar of smoking the house stick the first time. Like it hit on those same notes. Like I thought it was phenomenal. I didn't want to like put it out, but like I want to say that was before we had Jamon on, and like so like I knew we were gonna be smoking DCs, and like I was like I didn't want to show it because like I already took mine off this one because I started earlier, but these wrappers are super impressive and they really stand out. Like I did not want to be sitting here and not smoking my guest cigar when I had another cigar guy on here. So that was my first impression of the CATI cigar. And I was impressed. I was really happy for Mark because I knew he had put a shit ton of time into it. And that was his first one, and to like hit one out of the park that good on the first one, I thought spoke a lot to what you did to get that out there.
And honestly, a lot of that is also that shape. Mm-hmm. When you smoke that cannon, the diameter changes. So you're changing leaf ratio through the entire length of the cigar.
Yeah.
And so that flavor is going to continually change. And honestly, we didn't know how the cannon would do. We had no idea. So we produced about a third of what we did the other two Vitolas.
Yes, size does matter.
Yeah.
And so, Mark, our ever so chatty Evan's on it today.
Evan's on
but
one
this
today.
is a good one though. So, Mark, would you say that you were surprised with the amount of support and the reaction that you got from all the members here at ISSC for your cigar?
Oh, absolutely not. You know, these guys are family.
Yeah.
You know, the industrial crew is just fantastic. They're wonderful people. And that was part of why I wanted to include them in our blending process, is because I know they're not going to blow smoke up my ass.
Yeah.
You know, it does me no good if someone says, oh, this is great, it's great, and it's mediocre or bad.
Yeah.
And so...
And they're not just going to give you shelf space up here.
Oh,
I don't care who you are. You could be the biggest cigar brand in the world. And if it ain't a fit for them, they're going to tell you to piss off. Politely, but they're going to tell you to piss off. Like,
pretty
you're
much.
not going to just get shelf space in the highly curated humidor here.
Oh, not at all. And honestly, even though we blended with not just the Frakes, but customers here and other folks in mind, and you know, let them participate in the process, we still went through the full review process here.
Yeah.
You know, so we had to have buy-in from all the owners.
Yeah.
Before we could even get a space on the shelf. But now that we have space on the shelf, we've been doing really well. We've sold out of cannons up here.
Yep.
I've got more at the distributor. We're actually changing distributors right now, becoming our own distributor. And so as soon as I can get everything moved over to my new location, we're going to have more here in-house, we think.
What advice would you give if somebody was sitting here listening to this, or if you've had these conversations? Man, I'm thinking about doing a cigar. And, you know, I don't mean to be not even negative, just what advice would you give them to start on their journey in order of importance? If there's 3 or 4 items, what would you tell them to do to get started?
To start, put up 3 times the amount of money you think you're going to need. Because everything's a beating. And second, be patient. Because you're dealing with Central America or Dominican Republic. You know, these are third world countries. They're wonderful people, but they're not on your schedule.
Yeah, they do not work on your time.
Not at all. So be ready for extensive delays, and it's going to cost you every month you have a delay. You're going to be paying for your software. You're going to be paying for your insurance. You're going to be paying everything, and you're going to be sitting on your hands waiting. Like I said, when cigars get here, they've got to sit and acclimate. Well, just because it acclimated doesn't mean it's ready to smoke. You've got to age that rolled cigar so that the balance is right, the flavors are right. And so you're going to be sitting on your hands and a lot. You're going to be smoking your cigars every week. Are they ready? Are they not ready? And so be prepared for that kind of stuff. You know, it's way too much money. It is not. People will tell you, oh, you can get into it for about $15,000. No. If you want to do that,
you can't start a podcast for $15,000.
I bet you know that.
I mean, you can't. I mean, and do it right and do everything that you need to do. I mean, just let's break that down for people with a cigar too. Like, I mean, like, you have to start. All right, form your company. There's $500. You do it yourself. You know, just get your company set up. You're gonna get a company up. Now you gotta go buy your domain for however many years you want to do it. There's another $500. You're $1,000 in already, and all you've done is do a domain. Then you go secure all your social media. Then, if you haven't already done it, or you're not capable of doing it yourself, then you gotta source and have your logo done, or logos, depending on what you're selling, and all that. Then you gotta do your trademark and get that logo trademarked, or whatever it is you're doing.
And every trademark is 3 trademarks, because you have the words, you have the logo with the words, and then you just have the logo.
And all those are separate fees.
They're all separate fees.
They're all separate fees, and they also take, like, I'm going to say, if you have a really badass attorney that's doing that for you, you're looking at 6 months. Easy.
About right.
To get that. It might take longer depending on what you're doing and what you're trying to trademark, and if anything comes up in that process. I mean, that's the main reason we still don't have the music podcast out yet, because we just did everything I told you, and then when it got to the IPO trademark attorney, they're like, nope, such band has 2 albums called that. You don't want this to kick off, and then those guys come back when you actually start making money. And then they're coming back for you wanting royalties off of that. Like, an IPO lawsuit is the biggest lawsuit you can get in, the most expensive.
Well, the one thing that I heard from you, I've heard it from Jaman, who owns Definition, but I think the one thing that doesn't cost a dime, and I think being that I've been to PCA several times that people don't have, you have this, is the story.
Yeah.
The story, the why. Why did you create this stick? And we had extensive conversation about you. Like, you remember, I got all emotional and like all geeked up when he told me about his dad and the things being a mail carrier and the history of the family and all that, the why this cigar exists. Just like he named it after his father lived, he named it after his mother. I think anything you do, especially in this world, it needs to have a story behind it. That doesn't cost a dime. Now, developing that story into something marketable, of course, that's where the money comes in. And you
can take small steps. And no one's saying you have to do this like all at once either. And for those that are going to beat me up on this, there are ways around different things. And yeah, you can start out small and you don't have to do all these things. But to do it right, especially if you're going to create your own cigar brand, like, you got to go through this process. I mean, You said this started in 2020, and your first cigars rolled out here in what, April?
Our first public release was June.
June, okay. Just a couple months ago.
Yeah, so that's 4 years.
But we also had the glorious luck of a month after we incorporated, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so factories are shut down. That means your blending process is stopped. Your tobacco purchases have stopped. Everything. So we sat for 2 years doing nothing until we were able to get back into the factories. So if I'd been able, and I did get a lot of work done, got those trademarks done in that time. We got our, all the incorporation finished, all the lovely legal crap we have to do. With cigars, licensing's a big deal. It's a regulated product.
You got ATF to deal with and everything else.
And so what we've been able to do that's really helped us is outsource some of that. But there are fees, of course, associated with outsourcing anything. So rather than pay the small fortune to get our importer license, we've partnered with an importer to bring them in and take care of our taxes and all that. Well, by the time we take care of taxes and pay the importer, we're in another 60, 70 cents a cigar. Then it has to go to a distributor. Well, your distributor is going to charge you another 25 cents a cigar, which is why we're doing our own distribution now.
Now, did you have somebody these are a lot of little intricate things. did you have somebody walk you through all these steps? Is this learn as you go? Like, how did you know how to jump through these holes that are, because, I mean, you named off 10 things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of it the Frakes have been kind enough to help with. You know, some of it I do have a business background, so I'm accustomed to dealing with a lot of this stuff. But when it comes to tobacco, I was very fortunate in knowing several brand owners. And so they could give me little bits of information here and there. But, you know, these guys are swamped. They're traveling 300 days a year, some of them.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it's just blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then.
And you need to do that Mark McClurkan ebook, How to Start Your Own Cigar Brand.
Oh, Lord,
My
no.
trials and errors.
Mostly errors.
So another interesting thing, I'm going to pivot a little bit since we've been talking good about cigars. Mark has a very, now we've heard this, if you've ever seen when the Frakes used to do a podcast and things like that, Mark has a very interesting subject that's how I really met and got to know Mark, because he's profound on this subject and even got me kind of curious about it. It's this guy that sells beef jerky. And he's the mascot of it. But my man Mark actually has witnessed, hunted, and been around Sasquatch. Good old Bigfoot.
You're going there right out the gate?
Out the
All
gate,
right,
man. Let's not waste any time. So I didn't believe it. I like, whatever. Then I started talking to Mark, and then being that we kind of lived in Sasquatches kind of areas and things like that, and then he showed me this and taught me that, and then he had me read a book. Even though it was a fictional book, this book was so dope. And like when they broke down what a Sasquatch really is.
All right, what book was it?
What was the name of the book? Hold on, I got it.
Monster.
What was it called? Monster. Yeah, Monster.
All right.
And it's audio book, whatever. And when it described the characteristics of what a Sasquatch is, which is more of it's an ape. A big ass ape, but it's an ape, and the mannerisms and all those things. And I asked the one question, and I think I'll ask you, Mark, because I think I've asked you this before. With all the technology and everything that we got, I mean, we could find El Chapo buried under a rock in a tunnel. How come we can't get a clear ass picture of a Sasquatch?
There are several reasons for that. I mean, you go to the areas where you find animals like that, and it's thick. I mean, there are places where we're at, we used to go look for them that you can't see 20 feet in certain areas.
Is that the foliage and the forestry and all that?
It's all foliage. I mean, it looks like Cambodia in some of these places. It's thick, and it's measurable. But it was all just kind of a natural transition. My degree is actually animal science.
Okay.
And so I cowboyed some. I've worked with wildlife most of my life. I've been a trapper. I've been a tracker. And I've even guided people down rivers a few times.
Okay.
Hunted my whole life. And I had an encounter that I didn't know what it was. You know, even I've worked with all kinds of exotic animals, wildlife, you name it. And I had no clue what I had run into. It just made a sound, but it scared the absolute crap out of me. It was a howl, and it was not a canine howl. All I know is it was enough to get me up out of my stand and go to the house, even though I was holding a 30-06.
Okay.
It was a little rough.
Where was this at?
It was actually in Palapino in West Texas.
Okay.
A couple hours west of here. And for years, I thought about it, no idea. And then a friend sent me this audio file and said, "Hey, listen to this. They said this is Bigfoot." I'm thinking, oh, crap, another idiot. Because I didn't buy any of that, nothing.
Okay, so you weren't a person that thought that Bigfoot,
no, I thought it was
the
total
Loch Ness Monster, any of this. Like, this is all
BS.
No,
fairy tales to you at this point.
It is, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, my degree is animal science. You go to school for that stuff, and you're like, okay, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, he sent me this file, and every hair on my body stood up. It was almost identical to what I had heard in Palapino. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what the hell this is, but it's freaky, and I'm going to find out more. And so I started digging, and I found a group here in Texas called the Texas Bigfoot Research Conservancy at the time. Now they've got a different name.
Okay.
And I hooked up with them, and I thought, started talking to them, and they actually had a fair number of biologists on their teams. And these were guys, some of them I knew of. I've seen their writings. They teach at universities. And so I thought, well, okay, if anybody's going to help me with this, maybe it's these guys.
Okay.
And through the course of all of this, I've seen at least 8 of them.
8 Bigfoots. All in West Texas, or?
No, all of them were in Oklahoma that I've seen.
Okay.
Southeast Oklahoma. Broken Bow is kind of the general area there.
Oh, hell. I was getting ready to rent a cabin next month. No, I'm not going. I'm good.
You should have told me about it before I booked it. You said you wanted to take...
well, hold on. You said a 30-06 won't put one down?
Oh, it would.
Okay.
He said he was scared and went back inside even with a 30-06.
Yeah.
What about a 45?
All right, so how have you
I just want to make sure I take the right shit with me.
Well, one of the things this group did is start setting up where they just had their experienced people, and they would send people out into this area where we'd actually had a Forest Service worker contact us.
Okay.
So this is a guy that works for the National Forest Service and says, look, I'm not supposed to talk to you about this, but we know they're in here. And so they started setting up expeditions. And we would have people in there for 2 months nonstop. They would take 1-week shifts in small teams. And you talk to like the Choctaws and such in the area, and they'll tell you, just go in deep and wait a week and they'll come to you. Well, they're not wrong. And we've had some pretty wild encounters in there. We've got audio. We've learned a lot of limitations. And I haven't done any of that research in several years with trying to keep the cigar company running and all of that. But, it resulted in quite a few encounters with big apes.
And how has nobody ever gotten a picture of one of these?
Partly,
You've had 8 encounters, and you guys are out there specifically looking for Sasquatch. The amount of technology we have today, infrared, all this other stuff.
Yep.
How has nobody got an undisputable picture of this yet?
Because
you yourself have gotten 8 encounters.
Because most encounters last 2 to 3 seconds. When you're talking a thick area like that, they can disappear in 2 seconds, no problem. And so by the time you get a camera up, get it in frame, it's over.
Evan even asked, has anybody ever shot or killed one of them?
Shot, yes. Killed, I'm sure. I mean, there are old historical documents dating back to Lewis and Clark of encounters. I mean, if you look at the Lewis and Clark diaries, they're listed in there. Not as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, but they're listed as cannibalistic giants. Teddy Roosevelt, his memoirs, it's listed in there. So, people have had encounters. People have shot them. I've actually collected blood samples from one a guy shot. And we had them tested, and some of them came back as indeterminate because there's nothing to really compare it to. And we had another one come back as inbred primate, but they don't know the species. So it's a small breeding population in that area, apparently, because they are inbreeding.
Well, I got my Bigfoot out there.
Yeah, where you want to go with this, Biz? You started this shit.
It's interesting because you really have nobody else to talk to about that. And, with so many TV shows and things like that on it, to actually have somebody who's actually serious about looking at the Bigfoot lore and everything else, that's actually kind of dope. So I had to bring it up. We've never discussed that here.
Yeah.
Never discussed it here.
Well,
but I'm thinking of these like night ops and stuff that guys do. That like you have stuff set up to where like 360 coverage here.
We've used thermal imagers, we've used trail cameras, we've used all kinds of things. And you're very limited. You learn the limitations of a trail camera real quick when you're in thick foliage. And when you're in an area like that part of Oklahoma, you're talking 65 inches of rainfall. Well, that produces a lot of steam. It starts to warm up. That screws with your infrared sensors. I've had bears walk straight at a camera and not trigger the camera in there.
So tell us about pick the top 3 encounters out of the 8 and tell us a little bit about those. What happened? What did you see? What did you hear? What did they all make this same terrifying sound that you were talking about?
I've only heard that sound a couple of other times, and it was from a long distance.
Okay.
First time I saw one, I was actually sitting by myself in a creek, and I was there looking for them. And it walked across the creek, and I watched it walk across, and it didn't even register until it was all the way across. And I'm like, oh shit, I should probably get up. So that was the first one I saw. Then I had an encounter with my daughter that was 40 to 50 feet. We had one step out in a trail and look at us and then just turn and walk off.
What do they look like? In your words, what do they look like? Is this the same thing that everybody draws or tries to describe?
To some degree, yes. But it's really hard to understand the magnitude of what you're looking at because they're just big.
Does it look like Harry and the Hendersons?
No, not. Yes and no.
When you
yes,
say
in
big,
some
give
regards,
us a reference. Does this look like Shaquille O'Neal?
Think vertical elk. Think of elk on 2 legs. So you're talking a chest this thick.
8 foot tall?
I've run into some that were bigger than others. The one that I saw with my daughter was pushing 8 feet. It was huge. That thing was absolutely terrifying. I had a 45 on my hip at 40 to 50 feet, and I was not about to pull that trigger because I didn't want to piss it off.
Well, there goes my suggestion. Leaving my shit at home.
And I've run into others, which probably in my top 3 encounters is I got charged. I had one charge me while we were hunting it. And that got kind of bad. It was not a fun encounter at all. I ended up firing 2 shots to get it to turn. And so that one registers pretty well in my top sightings, but it went under a branch. And I remembered it, the top of its head clearing that branch by about 3 inches. So we did a measurement on it, and it would have been between 6, 9, and 7 feet to clear that branch.
Wow.
Well, okay. Well, I guess I'll pivot back because Evan is still chiming in.
Yeah, he's hammering
He's on my
this.
neck about this thing about Mark. Tell us the difference between a plume and a mold.
Oh, yes. That was one of the things that I used that lovely microscope of mine for. Everybody that's been in cigars for a while has heard the argument that plume is mold, there's no such thing as plume, blah, blah, blah. Well, I got sick of hearing it and just wanted to know the answer. And so I started grabbing cigars.
So now, explain what it is, first of all. So is it something that's on a cigar that looks like mold, but it's not, but people call it this? For the people that don't know,
sure.
What is plume? Or what would make you think that your cigar has that on it?
If you have a cigar that looks like it's got something on the outside of it, be it spots or whatever, depending on who you talk to, they're going to tell you, well, it's this or it's that.
Yeah.
Well, what it came down to was I just wanted to know. So I started taking samples of cigars. I got like 100 and something cigars of different ages.
Okay.
Almost everything I looked at was mold. Vast majority. And then I got one Trinidad sample, and it didn't look like the others. It looked like it had really fine dust on it. And it was very uniform. It was over pretty much the whole cigar. And so I thought, well, let's look at this one because it doesn't look like all this other crap that I've been looking at.
Okay.
And so I'll drop it under the microscope and hit it with a light, and it just sparkled. And so I start zooming in on it to see what happens. And it was just covered in tiny crystals. So the oils and the sugars and the nicotine had crystallized on the outside of the cigar as it aged. And we had it tested at a laboratory, actually. There was a guy up here at Industrial that was a professor. And so I said, hey, take this cigar, take some swabs of it, run it through some different samples you can do. So he ran it through a mass spectrometer and a bunch of other stuff. And what we figured out is that it was truly nicotine derivatives, like 4 different nicotine derivatives, and sugars for the most part, along with some fatty acids. And all of it had crystallized on the outside of the cigar. So plume is real. You know, people can argue about it all day long. It's not common, but it is real, and it does not look like mold. If you've got little spots on your cigar or it's blotchy looking, that's probably not plume. It's most likely going to be a type of mold. But if you've got a fine coating that even feels gritty to the touch, that's plume.
Okay, so like hairy, almost like crystals on it. Like I've seen this one time, I think, on a cigar.
It's not real common.
Yeah.
But when you see it, they're going to be super fine. It's going to look like it's
like crystals. Like
well,
really,
it won't even really
like
look
hairs, but almost.
It won't even look like hairs.
It's dust.
It'll look like it sat on somebody's shelf a little too long.
Okay.
It looks like dust.
So when you get these box of Cubans, these guys is breaking out that's been somewhere, that shit is mold. It's just a moldy ass old cigar.
Most of the time it's going to be mold.
Yeah.
If it looks like it's just dusty, then it's worth looking at. And it's going to be very uniform. If it's in spots and hit or miss here or there, or if it shows up on the foot of the cigar, mold. Everything on the foot is going to be mold. You're never going to get plume. Because it's so textured, you'd never be able to see actual plume.
Gotcha. So can you smoke a cigar with plume?
Absolutely. Dust it off and smoke away. It's a well-aged cigar.
But the mold ones you throwing away?
Depends on the type of mold. If it's white mold and there's not much of it, it's up to you. It's up to you, and it's probably not going to hurt you as long as it's white. But
Yeah.
you get yellow, green, blue, black, throw that sucker in the trash. Those molds penetrate. The white mold is mostly just surface.
Yeah.
Whereas the colored molds, they penetrate deeper into the cigar. They damage the leaf, and they're also shit you just don't want to inhale.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always just thrown that shit away.
Okay, if it's got a couple of little white dots on it, dust it off, you're all right. I've smoked quite a few like that.
I'm not rolling those dice. I don't feel like my luck would be as good.
I've inhaled enough lead paint from elementary school back when I was young to not want to do anything like that anymore. So I'm good
Yeah,
on
it's
that
one of those things that it's up to you, but
Yeah. Wouldn't recommend.
right.
Well, what's your fascination with history as well? Because you brought up something earlier, and I'd like for you to talk a little bit more about the creation and, why your dad inspired you on this journey. But also, you're one of those people that I know has a very lengthy family history that you've traced back a very long ways.
Oh yeah, that, and a lot of that was done before my time.
Yeah.
We had some genealogists in the family that tracked us back to Ireland long time ago, 1400s in some cases. And we ended up mostly being tradesmen and preachers over the years. But we have our old family crest and a few other things. But what really inspired me on these cigars was my love for the people that raised me. My parents, my grandparents, they are the reason I am who I am. They're the reason that I have the work ethic I do. They're the reason that I gained the experiences that I have. And so I just wanted to honor them with this business. If I'm going to produce something and it's going to be something that's really from my heart, what's the deepest part of my life? My family. And so that's why everything that we're producing, at least in our initial line, is named after a family member.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had family in the Texas Revolution, that played a lot into the branding. And almost all of it's subliminal. When you look at the logo, we've got the sea and stars. Well, you've got 6 stars for the nations that ruled over Texas and the lone star in the center. So that's where the stars come from. CATI, of course, is Come and Take It.
Mm-hmm.
You look at this PR-49 band, you've got a pump jack on there.
Yep.
My dad was born in Burke Burnett. The only thing Burke Burnett is known for, other than Teddy Roosevelt hunting wolves in the big pasture, is the fact that it was a boom town.
Yeah.
And so we put that pump jack on there. It's a picture from the Panhandle up near that area. And so that was his cigar. Now, when my mom's cigar comes out, she was born in Fort Worth. So we've got elements of Fort Worth coming in on that second band.
Oh, nice.
And so every member of the family that we do a cigar for, their hometown is going to be featured in our bands.
That's really cool. I'm sure that'll that's really good marketing, but again, it's like a natural built-in story like Biz was talking about. Is there anything you found interesting along the way in your going back through the family history that you want to share or talk about? I mean, like, I know since, all the DNA stuff and ancestry, I mean, I found a brother that I never thought I was going to find, and then that turned into 3 other people in the family that had kids, and you get all kinds of crazy stuff happening now with that going down the way it does now, with all this software that does the lineage and matches it with DNA.
Yeah, we haven't gotten too much into that. We've just kind of kept the old family trees and things that we have, and so no, our history is, we're like everybody else.
Yeah.
That's just it. Dad was worked for the post office.
Mm-hmm.
One of my grandfathers was a CB at Rabaul and Guadalcanal. So he was going in with the Marines. They're pulling bodies over their foxholes to not get shot.
Yeah.
My other grandfather, he was a finishing carpenter. He actually redid all the crown moldings and stairs and that kind of things in the antebellum mansions in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
And when he retired, he cowboyed. And as a kid, that's what we started doing. From the time I was 12, we ran cattle. And so everything that we're doing is just,
paying
this
homage.
Is our family.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. That's really cool to be able to have that kind of history and look back on it. I mean, I think I was telling you before the show, talking about family history and stuff like that. And my stepdad, I was telling you, he's got that, it goes back, like, I'm going to say somewhere between 100 and 200 years old family Bible that, I mean, this thing is massive. And you're like, did the Bible get bigger back in the day? We just cut it all down? Like, would we change font size? Like, these are huge, but no, it's like, there's literally, like, the first 2 inches of it are literally just, like, birth records, marriage records, stuff like that, like, that's how they kept track of that stuff back then.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that was one of the challenges with our family when they were doing our genealogy, is you get back to Ireland and we were Protestants. And so the churches all kept the records. Well, the Protestant churches all got burned.
Yeah.
That was a big uprising, and the Protestant churches were trashed. So it took a while to get a lot of those records.
Yeah, I'm sure. And some gone forever.
Yeah,
so.
some you'll never know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, what are your goals now for CATI Cigars? Where do you want to see this go? Like,
honestly, I have no idea. All I know right now is that I want to make a beautiful cigar.
You're well on your way with that.
I mean, that's it. If it turns into something that I do full time, wonderful, because I love it.
Yeah.
But my real goal is to make something that I can be proud of. And that's it. Now, if it pays for itself, that's a big bonus.
Yeah.
But
you mean it's not already paying for itself? You're not already in the green, out of the red?
Lord, no. I wish.
Everybody thinks it's that easy. You just become the CEO and do something and get some cool marketing and get some influencers or whatever to back you up, and then it's all just the gravy train from there.
Oh, Lord, no. My butt puckers up every time I write a check.
I'm sure.
I just bought $1,500 worth of cedar to line shelves with that nobody will ever see for cigar storage. It's been a small fortune on humidifiers, and you got to keep distilled water on hand, and it's been interesting. There's a lot of stuff that you never think about.
What are maybe some of the things that you hit on early on that were pitfalls or roadblocks that ended up being little stepping stones that once you accepted them for what they were, or you had to learn that lesson, that it was actually a crucial point for you that helped you move forward instead of it being the block you thought it was in this journey?
Yeah, distribution is one of those. I mean, we had a guy doing our distribution, and he's an outstanding guy. I mean, super nice. Do anything we need him to do. But with some banking issues and other things, he couldn't take our credit card payments anymore just because, and it didn't have anything to do with us.
Yeah.
But I can't take a payment because I don't have a distributor license.
Yeah.
And so if he can't take my payment and I can't take my payment, I'm not making money. And so that actually turned into us getting our own distribution license, our own distribution center. And so now we're going to pick that up ourselves. It not only saves us money, it helps us have better control over the business as a whole.
Do you wish you'd have done that from the beginning, or do you think that you had to go through that process to appreciate it or want to spend the additional money on it? Because you're still pouring money in. And I'm sure that wasn't a cheap decision. This is another big expense. I don't think this is a small expense.
It's another decent-sized expense.
Yeah.
It definitely is. And the paperwork you have to go through and everything else. It's not a fast process either, which causes more delays on your sales and everything else. I'm very glad we did it the way we did.
Yeah.
I really am, because I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
He's helped me through the process of getting my license. He's helped me with the process of setting up the distribution center. But that one was very much a challenge. I mean, that put us behind several months on getting payments, on pretty much running the business. I mean, it went from selling to everything's on hold again. So that's probably the biggest issue that we've had.
Yeah.
That really turned into something good.
Was there something maybe early on when this was still an idea for you that kept you from pulling the trigger sooner that you look back on and go, man, like, I wish I'd have come to this conclusion about this thing that was holding me back from, not having, take COVID out of the picture, because that's not fair. But was there something that, you had this idea and this thing kept you from doing it for a while, and then you decided because of X to do it, and you wish you'd have come to that conclusion sooner?
Fear. Absolutely fear. Because this is a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
I'm a 9-to-5 guy. I've worked my entire life. I've never owned a company before this. Didn't know what I didn't know. And when you're just getting by, trying to put a kid through school and everything else, you worry about that money.
Yeah.
And what really pushed me was the company I was working for. Obviously COVID hit and everything went to crap.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'd just been pushed and pushed and pushed at that job. I was killing my health, destroying my health. I had 3 teams on 2 continents. I worked hours from East Coast all the way to India time, which is 11 and a half hours difference. And so I was going from 7 in the morning until midnight every night on my regular job.
Yeah.
And, in your VP level, you're not getting overtime for that. You're not getting huge bonuses. You're considered middle management, and you're also considered expendable. And the mortgage industry, which is what I've been in for quite a while, is pretty volatile.
Yeah.
You have layoffs at least every other year.
Yeah.
You just do. And what really got the company moving fast was a layoff. I lost my job. I was out of work for a year. I couldn't find even a temp job for 6 months. With 25 years experience, couldn't even get a temp job.
After running multiple teams across continents.
Yep.
Yeah.
3 programming languages, multiple business intelligence applications. Nobody wanted me because they were afraid I would leave because I had already been a VP, so I couldn't get the lower level work. And
which you were willing to take. I remember these conversations.
Yeah, hey, give me a paycheck.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah, I'll step back down.
And you can't look for a job more than 8 hours a day. You just lose your mind.
Yeah.
And so, screw it. Got insomnia anyway. We're going to pour it into the cigar company. And so I just busted my ass that whole time. Every extra hour I had went into the cigar company. And that's what got us to production.
And that's what got you over the fear?
I mean,
because you didn't have a choice.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know what?
But that's also digging in, most people's mind. Like, you no longer have a check coming in. And now you're going to dig a bigger hole, or you've got a much reduced check because you did find something and you got this coming in, but like you're now going to tell your family. I mean, that can't be an easy conversation with your wife and having a kid at home and like, hey, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to cost X amount of money, and then like you said earlier, it costs 3 times what X was, and you're still just grinding at it.
My wife has been so supportive.
Yeah.
She was more or less, well, just shut up and do it. And when I did finally get a job, it was a 40% pay cut.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. I'm not even managing people now. I can log out at 5 and work on the cigar company. Screw it.
Yeah.
But, it's not bringing in a paycheck even at this point. What really got me going was I'm sick and damn tired of making hundreds of millions of dollars for other people and being expendable.
Yeah.
And so there was a whole lot of pissed off. And that's what really spurred me to push it forward.
Yeah, because that's not, I don't know if I'd call that rock bottom. Because you hear a lot of these people like, you have to hit rock bottom, or you know, you just have to be willing to risk everything. And that you're going to go into these huge amounts of debts. And you see these guys that are, they've started and filed bankruptcy on 10 companies, and then this one finally, you know, goes and turns into their thing. But they were able to deal with that struggle and maintain that passion and their vision for what they wanted, and they just kept going. Like, they just didn't quit. They just had that discipline to keep, all right, cool. Like, I just went bankrupt on this. Like, I lost my life savings trying to do this one thing. Now I got to rebuild again. But to stop them from doing it again, like, they just keep doing those. So,
well, like us, you know, you get in with a factory. You get a blend that's beautiful. I mean, we had a blend that was absolutely gorgeous, and the factory flaked out. And it's like, all right, this is not going to kill it. I know I've got some time and some money invested here, but I'm not going to let this kill us.
yeah.
And thankfully, the contacts that we had made over the last several years, we were able to pivot to another factory, reestablish a new blend, and start moving forward.
So there was actually a failure right out the gate of,
oh yeah,
you had this blend that you were ready to go, pull the trigger on, and then that shit the bed.
Yep.
And you had to start back at square one again.
Had to start completely over on it. And honestly, every cigar you make, it may or may not work. You know, for instance, we had a blend at another factory that was, you know, we started as a base blend, and I told them, hey, let's make these changes here. Let's move these tobaccos. Let's swap this one. And I lit it, and it was like the whole floor stopped. And the factory owner said, what the hell did you just light? It was gorgeous. So we had a bunch of samples made. Because of that aging process that I was talking about earlier,
Yeah.
2 months later, I smoked that cigar. There's no flavor. So we're back to square one on the blend.
It lost all the flavor?
Once all of the tobaccos married, they canceled each other out. And so it was like smoking paper. There was just nothing there.
That's bizarre.
And so you're like, shit. Or you may smoke one on the floor and it's got a great flavor to it, but as it ages, you know, that little bit of pepper that you were getting on the retrohale that made it interesting faded out. So it's still okay, but it's not what you wanted. So there's a constant give and take. You know, the odds of hitting a blend on the first try, not good. You're going to be tweaking. And those blends take a long time to do.
So why do so many people age cigars then if... I'll see the right way to ask this. Why do so many people age cigars then if you taste something and it tastes like X at the factory on the floor and you go, this is good enough or this is excellent, and then by the time it gets rolled, and whether they age it for a while there or it just ages in the process, and then it comes to you, and then you now have it here, semi-ready for distribution, and then you now smoke one because it just comes here, and it doesn't smoke like what you just experienced on the floor, which could have been 3 months ago, 6 months ago, right. You know, whatever.
It will never smoke like it did on the floor.
So that never happens.
Never.
All right. So then it ages, and then you just find a point again where you either say this got better, this got worse, so we're scrapping this, or now it's really good and we know based on this timing that consistently we can produce this? Because I don't see how, I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around how, if that's the process, how does a Nelson Alfonso or a, you know, I mean, you name it, Luciano or a Davidoff, how do they create this line and then for years and years produce something that to your average to above average cigar person that's buying a cigar like that it still stays that consistent? Does that make sense? Did I ask that properly?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, take Nelson. He doesn't know how his stuff's going to smoke. He doesn't know if it's going to work or not for years because he ages his stuff so long. And so it's a massive risk.
Yeah.
But he's so good at what he does that he's got a lot better chance than the rest of us.
I don't know where my cigar went. That's never happened.
Right under the middle of your chair. So what happens is every year you're going to get a little bit different crop.
Yeah.
You just are.
Yeah, weather, climate.
Exactly. Your weather changes, little changes to the soil.
Same seed, same field.
Little changes to the aging, little changes in fermentation. And so there's constant tweaking. You know, each crop you're going to need a little bit of a tweak to make sure that you get that consistency. And that's where these blenders at the factories come in. They're going to make sure that you're consistent. They're going to take those same tobaccos. Okay, let's change a little bit of the ratio on this filler versus the other filler. You know, is the binder that we have neutral, or is it adding something like a nutty flavor? So they're going to balance that out for you. It's going to help a lot to have somebody that has your back, which is, you know, having that good factory. You know, FCT in Honduras, absolutely outstanding. That's going to be a challenge no matter what. It's always going to be a challenge for every cigar company. And you've got other guys that they know their tobacco's limited. They know it's going to change. And, you know, and that's mostly going to be the boutique companies.
Yeah, like a Darren Chaffee with
Principal. Exactly. He knows it's going to change, but he's going to keep it in the ballpark. He's going to keep it fairly close, you know, so that you don't come out with a drastically different cigar in the same line. You know, in the same, but
or if it does, I guess you just got to now rethink that and maybe just create another cigar.
Yeah, pretty much.
Call it something else because it changed that much.
Potentially, yeah. Or your customers just know, hey, this is what I've got. It's limited quantities. Things are going to shift.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of it's setting expectations. Now you've got your guys like your Drew Estate.
Yeah.
Their blends, you know, one, they have very, very high control over their tobacco. You know, they know exactly what they've got. They've got tons of it. And so it's easier for them to adjust. Where for smaller companies, it's a little tougher because I'm not buying a warehouse full of tobacco. I can't afford to.
Yeah.
But those blenders that they have at each of the factories.
So do you have to strategize for that when you're picking out something? Like, do you think that is critical or crucial?
Absolutely.
When starting your cigar brand? Because
when
if you pick something and you hit a home run with something that you may never get again, but it was magical and it was great, like, have you seen that happen a lot to other cigars in your 20 years of experience? Or is this something you worried about? Is this something you put a lot of thought into to make sure that you didn't go down that road? Because, like, again, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my brain around, even if you had a really good blender that you had 10 of them in this factory, well, what happens when those guys retire or can't roll cigars anymore? Like, is the next generation just being trained that well that, like, they can go, okay, you had these 3 fillers in here this year, this filler is actually stronger than it was the year before, and this other one is a little bit weaker, so we're going to change that ratio. And essentially, you're still getting pretty close to the same flavor profile.
And that's really...
Like, is that the science?
Pretty much how it works, yeah.
Okay.
And when you're going into it, you have to set expectations with your factory.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you go into a factory, they may have a couple of hundred different tobaccos, depending on the size of the factory. They could have 1,000 or more tobaccos. And when you go in, you have to let them know, hey, look, we're turning this into a production brand long term. This cigar is going to be a long-term blend. And so when they go through and start selecting tobaccos for you to work with, they're only going to give you things that they can reproduce to a reasonable degree.
Okay.
Where if you go in and you say, look, I'm doing a limited run, 2,000 sticks, and done.
Yeah.
You're going to have a totally different selection of tobaccos.
Gotcha.
And so that's where it comes with working with that factory and making sure that you pick a factory that's got blenders that know their tobacco.
So before you did your own cigar, what were your like top 2 or 3 like go-tos? What do you smoke when you're not smoking your own cigar?
Man, I smoke everything.
Yeah, but what were your go-tos? I mean, I know you're like me, and like my wife hates it because people are like, what should we get Garrett? She's like, a gift card to ICC, because if you go up there, which people have tried to do, and it's like, what does Garrett smoke regularly? They're like, he smokes everything in the humidor except for about 5 or 6 things.
You know, that's really hard for me to say because I get bored really easy. And so
we have that in common for sure.
Yeah, so I do jump around a lot.
And your palate changes, and you're like, this week I'm like, man, I'm not feeling this. Like,
am I
it's
having
like music to me? Like, am I listening to rock? Am I listening to death metal? Am I listening to rap, R&B?
You know,
what mood am I in?
Exactly.
I'll tell you.
Is it 5 in the morning and I'm in the office doing books?
Yeah.
And I'm drinking straight espresso?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it evening and I've just had something heavy? You know, it really varies super wide. My go-tos, I used to smoke quite a few Liga 9s. But honestly, I would smoke a fair number of Davidoff, like the Nicaragua.
Yeah.
Or the late hours.
I love the late hours.
That is my favorite.
Yamasa is
really good. I just smoked a couple of those in the last...
I'm a big fan of the Millennium.
3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I love their little ones in the tin cans. You could pick any of those, and I'm in on those.
But if you're looking at normal everyday type smokes, I think Willie Herrera is an absolutely phenomenal blender for everyday smokes and specialty smokes too. But you know, you look at the ones that he's done, the Norteño. I don't like to smoke them right out of the box. I just don't. But you smoke a Norteño Lonsdale that's got a year of age on it, that's an insanely good stick.
I don't know that I've ever smoked that.
They're a little heavy for me straight out of the box, but after a year and a half, oh my gosh, that hits it perfect. No, that one's going to be, it's Drew Estate. He's blending for Drew Estate.
Drew Estate.
So it's a Norteño is that particular line. The Herrera Esteliz.
What's the blue label? What's the blue label?
That's the blue label Herrera Esteli.
I like that.
Yeah, Willie does some phenomenal blends. And so if you're looking for good, cheap, everyday smokes, that was where I would go a lot because his palate aligns with mine to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys like Steve Saka, their stuff's just it's a little heavy for me.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's not a great stick, but it doesn't align to my palate.
Did you have to pick any that, like, after going through your experience of trying to get something to the floor, did you have to vary from what you like deep down too much to get what you got? Or
For
have you
this
just
stick-
stayed true to what this is what you would want to smoke?
For this stick, I love it. You know, it's a great,
Yeah.
for me, it hits that middle of the road point. I can smoke it in the morning
Yeah.
or the evening, doesn't matter. But that's also part of why we involve other people.
Yeah.
That's why we loop our customers in, because my palate is not everybody else's.
Right.
And so not only does it give us confirmation that, yes, this is a good stick, but it gets me out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I never want to stop doing.
Yeah.
I always want to be pushing that edge, pushing that comfort zone. Because if I get in a rut, my product gets in a rut.
Yeah.
And so we will always include customers from different parts of the country, you know, different types of palates, different backgrounds, you know, you name it. We're going to include everybody in our blends every single time.
Yeah.
Because we want to produce that product for them. Is it my product? Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not making it for me to smoke.
Yeah.
If I want to make a cigar for me to smoke, I'll run down to the factory, we'll blend something, and I'll take a crap load of them home and smoke them.
Yeah.
But we're really doing this for our customers.
Yeah.
And so that's
gotta be
our
hard to
focus.
do though too, because I mean I know just like here in the lounge, like alone, I know, like I'm not gonna go ask Andrew, hey, what'd you think about this? Because I know well, it depends on what kind. I take that back. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in, like what I'm smoking currently. Because Andrew and Nate are going to be much bolder, much peppier. Like they want something that's going to kick your ass. I forget what cigar it was, but there was one like Pops was there like, this is the heart attack cigar. This thing raised my blood pressure. Like I don't know how you guys are smoking this, and they loved it. And Pops and like. But then Pops and Brandon and I are way more aligned on our palates. Right. In general. Not all the time, but in general. So like if I see all of a sudden Brandon and them are smoking something like nonstop, like if I see Brandon grab a stick that I haven't smoked 2 or 3 times in a row, I'm like, I'm trying that. Like that's definitely probably gonna be up my alley. But then there's other people too, like Aaron up here. Aaron likes some different sticks that like some of his favorites, and like I tried them, or even you know, like Eric Hall, like what was those cigars, the monsters of
Cookie Monsters?
No, they were monsters. They did a whole series. They put it out like
the Digger.
Huh?
The Digger. That giant LFD thing that hammers
No,
the crap
well
out
that's
of
one too, but I'm talking about the monsters. It was a set and they did the Monsters of Horror and it
Tatuaje.
Tatuaje.
Yeah.
I bought somehow over the course of 2 years, I bought 3 boxes of those.
You gave me some.
I can't smoke them. I tried, and everybody's like, smoke the Jason, smoke the Freddy Cougar, and I'm like, and the bad thing was like, I would open one and it like one would get to the back of my locker, and then I'd forget that it was back there, and I'd stick it back there because I didn't really enjoy it. I was like, I'm gonna let that sit there for a while. And then somehow I would totally forget and space out and buy the next year's box. And before you know it, I had 2 from one year and then 1 of the current year. And I had opened all 3 of them. Like if I just hadn't opened all 3 of them, like I could have easily sold a whole unopened box to like somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Like, then it was like, I mean, I made Eric Hall like the deal of his life. I was like, you give me $100, you can have all of these in my locker. Like I will fill a Ziploc bag for you.
Eric can smoke a red oak tree, just like that. I had one of them Jacob ladders. I took one puff and it took me to my knees. And Eric's like, give it here, I got it. I was like, damn.
I mean, one of those monsters. I remember. I will never forget this. Like I literally lit it. Took about 2-3 puffs, and I had like the worst headache I had ever had in my life, other than the time when I was dating my wife and her father and some of her cousins and uncles got me to smoke hookah with them at the lake. That is the worst headache I have ever had in my life. But man, that's got to be. Man, there's so many things that are so challenging about cigars. Like I get impressed with the people that can like. I mean, I still struggle remembering the names of the shapes and the sizes. And then you start talking about wrappers and binders and fillers, and I'm like, you're speaking Chinese to me. Like, I don't even know. Like, I can just tell you, like, I like this one. This one is a little stronger. I like this one with coffee. I like this one with my whiskey. I like this one with tequila. I still, in, let's say, 4 or 5 years now of really smoking cigars, I can't get deep like some people on here. You know, like I sit with sometimes like you or Jaman or Panda, and I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, yes, I like that one. And they're like, yeah, I'm getting blueberry notes off of this, or, you know, whatever. And I'm like, I don't get that. I don't know how you get to it. I can tell you if it's a heavy, I use the word like light, medium, heavy, peppery, smooth. And it's like, it's some of these things that like and I guess I feel the shame of it, because in bourbon world, if you say that Blanton's was really smooth, the bourbon nerds are gonna annihilate you.
Oh yeah.
You know, like if you can't pick out that had caramel and vanilla notes, or that was a cherry bomb, or, you know, whatever it is, you're gonna get roasted by somebody.
You are. And, you know, some of it's innate. You know, some of it's your physiology. You know, do you have the palate to taste that stuff? But a lot of it's developed.
Yeah.
It really is. If you sit down and you just, it sounds silly, but sit down with a flavor wheel. Sit in the dark, no distractions, inside, and just smoke. And just think about what you're tasting. This is kind of woody. And you look over at the wood section on that flavor wheel. And so that's how you're going to develop your palate. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of it is total bullshit. Palates are so subjective.
Yeah. I mean, because I feel that way with, I guess cigars maybe are harder for me because, like, I've broken my nose so many times and had, like, reconstructive surgery twice, which is amazing that I can retrohale. Like, I'm super proud that I can do that, because I was like, when Pops was first explaining to me, I was like, oh, I don't know, that's probably going to go really bad for me. I'm gonna probably be yakking back here and everybody's going to be clowning me. But that does help. Like, what, with this one, with your PR, what are the flavors you get out of this?
I try to be very general with that because palates are so subjective. So what you're going to get on the PR49 is going to be kind of earthy, a little nutty, and a little creamy. But it's also, you know, when you look at our boxes, we list flavor notes to a degree.
Okay.
So you'll look at our box, and this one's going to say earthy, nutty, and robust. So it's not super mild smoke. You're going to get a lot of flavor out of it. You're going to pick up some of that earthiness. You're going to get some nice nuttiness out of both the binder, which is that good Connecticut where they're rotating peanuts and stuff through the crops. And so you'll actually taste some of that.
The nuttiness out of these and the earthiness.
Yeah, and the jalapa in it's going to give you some of that creamy nuttiness, like almost like cashew. You know, a smoother nut, not like a walnut or something like that.
Yeah, it's not like pecan or anything like that. It's not like a overwhelming.
And so that's why we just list a general term.
Yeah.
So, you know, earthy, some people are going to say, oh, it's fresh plowed earth, or oh, it's fresh cut. Bullshit.
Yeah.
That's what you're tasting. It's not what everybody else is tasting.
Yeah, I gave you that word, and now you're kind of like running with it in your own direction.
Exactly. So we try to just use general terms.
Yeah.
Because
what do you get on the Canon?
Canon, that one is definitely a weird animal. It's a weird animal. It just is.
Larry Adams, I'm so glad you jumped on here. That's absolutely hilarious. But Larry Adams just said, I want to smoke a CATI Cannon with Sasquatch and Evan Brussel at the DNC.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's so awesome, Larry. I love Larry. Larry has some of the best posts, and I love that his give a fuck is real low, and he'll just put it out there, and he stands on what he stands on. Like, I absolutely love it. He cracks me up. I'm sad I missed him last time he was in the lounge. I heard about it, and I wasn't around to where wanted to meet him and his wife, because he's been a long-time listener since we started this thing. I absolutely love that. Like, that's cool. Yeah, I want to smoke a can and like hang out in Oklahoma with Mark and, you know, see if I can hear this howl and have an encounter. Might change my life. Who knows?
Yeah, we've actually had people cry up there.
I'm sure if it's that frightening, and
we've had them lose their mind a little bit up there. It's, but you know, we just want to stay true to ourselves through all of this. You know, we don't want to let things get overblown. You know, oh, well, you're supposed to taste this or that, and come on. I mean, when you look at this industry, there's a lot of ego.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, I've been through enough crap. I don't have any ego left. And so it's, we just want to make a great smoke for people.
Well, I think you're well on your way to doing that. Biz, there was something else you were talking about earlier that you were like, I'm going to ask Mark about this. And
it was Bigfoot.
No, there was something else before that.
What else besides Bigfoot?
I don't remember, but you were talking about something.
We're taking show notes.
On. Or the what?
I'm saying I'm doing show notes as we're talking, because there's key parts and key things. I want to make sure they get munched later on.
Yeah.
Technical crap. Sorry. I don't. Sasquatch was.
I threw him off because you guys were talking about, you know, music, and then there was something else you were talking about.
No, I'm just saying that as being a DJ, Mark was the one that introduced me to some other stuff. To was it Red Dirt Country? Is that what we call it? So first time second time I did, First Friday. He's like, you got any Turnpike Troubadours? I said, any highway who? He said, nah, Turnpike Troubadours. I'm like, I ain't never heard of that. Hell, that is. And I found it played. I was like, okay, I got it. But that's what being a DJ is about. You have to, like cigars in the palate, you have to also expand your mind with music, because you never know the crowd that's in front of you.
Yeah.
So Mark has a pretty good eclectic mindset when it comes to the music.
Oh, my music tastes run the full gamut. I mean, I've got, you hit my playlist and it sounds like maybe I've got a mental disorder.
I think that's pretty much everybody.
I mean, I may go from 1800s opera. You know, I may flip from Carmen and the Pearl Fishers over to some Ray Wiley Hubbard, out to Rolling Stones, Creedence. I mean, you name it. I mean, so I'm a little bit all over the place.
On not too long ago, and I'm really pissed I can't get my record player to play right now. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. We're not getting into that right now. Well, all right. There's two things we ask every guest on the show, so it's that time for you.
Great.
And I appreciate you coming and doing this with us. I know you were absolutely willing, but you're just like, man, I don't have anything to talk about. I'm like, no, you do. You have a good story, man. Like, I want to get that out there. So thank you for agreeing to come do this with us.
We appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Anytime. So, what's up, Rob? What would be, if you got to leave your daughter with one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Don't stop. Just don't stop. Because if you let yourself get in a rut, you're going to miss out on so much. You know, I spent the first 25 years of my career doing shit that I absolutely hate. I still do shit that I hate. I don't like computers. I'm on computers all day.
Yeah.
But because I've continually learned and I've continually grown, we're moving into another phase of our lives. And so you've just got to push forward.
Yeah. That's a tough balance. I think a lot of people struggle with that, you know, some people may get into a position where they think they want to do something, or maybe it's a way to make ends meet, and they get to a point where they're really successful at it, but it's not where their passion lies, or they they lose that passion for what it is they're doing because maybe they feel like they're in the hamster wheel of the corporate world, but then they keep themselves limited and trapped there. And just because they can't figure out what that other thing is, I mean, this is probably me speaking more personally, but I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people that do that. They're like, they don't push themselves to grow or meet new people or, you know, to learn new things that might spark that.
You get pigeonholed in that cubicle. I've got to pay my bills.
Yeah.
I've got to get the kid through school. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And you get so wrapped up in getting by that you forget to live.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point that I'm too old to give a shit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do what I want to do now.
So I think you need to add another part to that in your word of advice is you said don't stop, but I think don't stop and don't forget to live.
Absolutely. You know, and that's one thing with my daughter. She didn't know what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so she's developed a passion for photography.
Yay.
And now that's her minor in school.
Yeah.
And we're really encouraging that and telling her, you know what, if this is what you love, just frickin' do it. There are going to be days that you don't want to.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Find a new aspect of it. Find a new part of that passion. You know, she loves the wildlife and the nature piece. Well, you know, supplement that with something that'll help you grow. Get in some product photography. Get in some landscape photography. You know, break things up. Learn who you are.
Yeah.
But don't stop learning. Just keep moving forward and stick with that passion.
Yeah.
And one way or another, you can find a way to make it work. You know, can she do wildlife photography? Yeah, she could focus on that and make it her passion. Could she make her paycheck photographing real estate?
Yeah.
And still do what she loves?
Yeah.
But don't stop. That's it.
That's great advice, man. All right, now's the fun part. Since it's Common Sense the podcast, man, we ask everybody to give us their 2 cents. Now, when I say give us your 2 cents, maybe it's something we didn't ask you. Maybe it's something we asked you and you didn't get to go as far as you wanted to with it, or you want to add on to it. It literally can be anything. It's your 2 cents. So I would encourage you just to, you know, whatever's weighing on you or wherever you want to go with it, you get to throw it out there.
Man, for me, life is good right now.
Hell yeah.
You know, it's even with setbacks and challenges and everything else, the days that you keep your gratitude higher than your expectations, you're going to have an absolutely beautiful day. And so I'm trying every day to make that list of what I'm grateful for. Whether I write it down or I just go through it in my head in the truck, for me, gratitude is everything. It improves my attitude, it improves the outcomes, and it improves my relationships. So no matter what you do, maintain that gratitude. No matter how hard it gets, find where you're blessed.
That's great advice. That is really hard to do sometimes. Like, I mean, you thinking back in the, you know, couple years ago when you were like struggling with figuring out things and doing stuff like that could be challenging. I mean, I've had that conversation with my wife several times. That like, holy shit! Like, I just need to go out and sit on my patio, smoke a cigar, even though I really don't want to be out there because it's too hot or it's this and that, and like, but shit, I got this beautiful patio. Like, be grateful for it.
There are
take 5 minutes to do that, or, I mean, you can make it as simple as you want, but like, yeah, I think that's very important. Like, I should be better about having a gratitude practice of maybe writing it down.
Yeah,
I mean, I know I do it in my head, like you just said a lot, but not enough, definitely. And that is a critical thing.
Just make a little gratitude journal. Mm-hmm. Every day, write something you're thankful for, even if it's just 1 or 2 things. You know, and once you'll start seeing patterns.
Yeah.
You know, And so when I'm down, I can always look back and say, you know what? I have an absolutely amazing wife. I have a daughter that is just turning into this wonderful woman that we're so proud of.
Yeah.
And so it's little things, things you don't think about. Did I have something work out great in the kitchen by accident when I was making something for dinner?
Yeah.
Just the little stuff. Because we get so focused on the crap that went wrong. And so you've got to keep that focus on your gratitude.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, man, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed being able to have you as a friend, man.
Thank you.
I wish you the utmost success with CATI Cigars. I hope all you that haven't tried it yet, you will try it. Where else can they find them? Is it only available at Industrial right now?
Right now, we're only at Industrial. Once we move to distribution center, we're going to start our expansion.
Okay.
We're trying to do things a little differently, so we've come out with some new vendor kits that look different than everything else in the industry.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to put our personal touch on it. So.
Hell yeah, man. I know it's going to be kick-ass, whatever you put out there. So if you can go on industrial.com. You could order your sticks there. You can come into the shop. Highly encourage that if you haven't done that yet. But yeah, give the CATI cigar a try. And when the cannons come out, if you want to try one of those, you better jump on that shit fast, because I'm telling you right now, they're going to go quick around here.
And I've got 2,500 more rolling in Honduras as we speak, and we've got about 1,100 in the warehouse. We've just got to get them moved so we can restock.
There y'all have it. You got the inside scoop, so they'll be coming soon. So check them out, and thank you for joining us. Please give this a like, a share, follow us. If you don't actually follow the show, clicking that follow button is huge for us. Can't say that enough. Or somebody else that might really dig these conversations, shoot it over to a friend. Let them enjoy it too. We would greatly appreciate that. But we'll see you guys again next week. Same time, same place. Appreciate you guys.